now turn the podium over to my colleague Ryuichi Kitamura, who's going to talk briefly about our plans for dynamic modeling.
Thank you very much. What I'd like to do is not so much actually to talk about the transactions model, but rather talk in more broader general terms why we want to take on this approach. And that approach, by that I mean using the longitudinal data, taking observation of people taken over time repeatedly. Could you put the slide, please? And when we talk about forecasting, we have been using the term models, and we take the data, estimate the model, and somehow use it to tell something about the future. And when we do that, most of the time we are using what we call the cross-sectional approach. When we say cross-section, that's a cross-section. We cut the reality at one point in time and take a look at inside the cut and see what's in there. So I take a snapshot of you all here and observe what color of ties, colors of your ties and coats and so forth. That gives us a cross-sectional data. So we wear things that are different. And that's data taken at one point in time. When we say longitudinal data, that's data taken over time anyway. Cross-sectional approach, okay, we take data, cross-sectional data, that's taken from a sample of people, behavioral units, people or households in our case, at one point in time. And we construct, when we have that data, the models we make are based on differences between people. Differences between short people and tall people, light people and heavy people, rich people and poor people. Models are based on differences. And when we use that model for forecasting, then what we do is, okay, I earn, or Tom earns less than 30K. Next year he might be earning more than 30K. So we plug in those future income or whatever we think is explaining the behavior for the future value. And we plug that value into the model, and the model gives us the number, and that's our forecast. Could you turn it? Yeah. Now, when we use the longitudinal or panel approach, and when we do that, then we're getting a model which is a little bit different from the cross-section model, and forecasting is not as simple as plugging in my future income into the model and compute like the utility as David did. It's not as simple as that. But rather, what we have to do is simulate or recreate the changes in behavior using the model over time. So that's an entirely new concept in forecasting, and that in my field of transportation planning, people haven't really been doing it that way. But there are many reasons we believe that things are much better off. We can do a much better job by doing it that way. So what we need are models of changes, not models of differences. Okay? That is, we don't need a model which tells that Tom and I have different heights, but rather we need a model which tells me how my height might be changing, which unfortunately may not change. Okay. Then why, okay, we need changes. Then why can't we use the models of differences to predict changes? That's because, well, if you're an economist, you know the term elasticities, and I'm not an economist, but I have the idea, some idea about what it is. Longitudinal elasticities. That tells us when my income increases by, say, $1,000, then how much of my, say, wine consumption, let's follow the case of Chuck Ferguson's, how much will my wine consumption increase? So we take the difference from now and 1 year from now. Suppose my income increases by $1,000 and my wine consumption increases or decreases by so much. Then we get an estimate of longitudinal elasticities based on the changes in behavior. And that's what we need for forecasting. But when we use the cross-sectional data, then what we do is we take the wine consumption of Tom and his income. We take my wine consumption, my income, take the difference, and compute the elasticities. Then the question is whether those two types of elasticity is the same. And the data results we have so far indicate that those two are different. We cannot quite use cross-section elasticities based on the difference between some and me to predict what I will be doing next year.